as we go through that. So continue participating. Jordana, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Hi, good. How are you doing?
You know what? I'm not doing too bad. So for folks, as we're getting warmed up here, so Jordana is the founder and CEO of Premier Listings, which I'm actually really excited. I actually am always excited. That's pretty much my kind of baseline is excited and energetic. But
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to this because you aren't a learning person. So
I'm
you're
not.
coming from a different angle and you're going to be talking about how you're actually using this with your real estate business and some of the challenges. And this is going to be kind of more the panel style. It's not really a panel when there's only two people, but this is just you and I chatting and me answering some questions. But I do have your slides listed. So I will let you do a brief introduction and you tell me if like a certain slide needs to be up at a particular time, but I
Sure.
do have those.
Okay, cool. So I'm Jordana, like you said, and I own and operate Premier Listings. So I'm not a learning person, but I am a business person and an entrepreneur. And one of the main issues I think any entrepreneur has is training their salespeople. We have about
Yes.
100 sales associates across Palm Beach, Broward, and Brevard County, which is pretty much the east coast of Florida.
Okay. Oh, you're
Mostly,
down in Florida. All right. I got
yeah,
lots of peeps I know down in Florida.
yeah. This is our ninth year of business, and we are
Okay.
growing rapidly. So, as we're growing and scaling, how we're training our associates, especially because we hire a lot of brand new agents. I don't know if any of you guys have seen any of the news or the headlines, but there's a lot of changes right now in the
Just
real
a
estate.
few, like just a couple. I think
Yeah,
there's like a few minor changes to the real estate industry. I've heard.
exactly. And I think
Okay.
the hardest part about it as a broker and a business owner is making sure that my team is trained on exactly how and what to say. And that's where Seven Taps comes in.
Okay. All right. And you got, I mean, yeah, you got 100 people. So it's not like a couple people that you're just trying to catch up that you can
Actually,
just talk
118. The slide is wrong.
118. Oh, well, see, there you go. Yeah. So that's not something where you can just like, hey, let's grab lunch real quick and I'll catch you up on what's been going on. You've got to do all of that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, back in
So,
the day, I used to train them by getting in a conference room, and that's
well,
not
right.
possible anymore, especially because some of these guys are a couple hours away from me. So,
Yeah, I was going to say that's not exactly scalable when you've got 118 people spread across a bunch of different counties.
exactly.
Okay. All right. So with that, I'm curious because I'm going to flip. And again, you tell me what slide I'm supposed to be on because I have no idea. But with that, I'm curious, how did you end up going, I
So,
need to do this? And then how
yeah.
did
So,
that lead to seven tabs?
if you go to the next slide,
Let me see.
and actually, while you're doing that, I'm going to publish a poll. So,
Okay.
I'm curious about how many of you guys are currently using sales scripts. Did that work? Cool.
Yep, it did.
And so while people are answering that, oh, it looks like it's kind of even. So the reason why I'm asking is because the way that we've incorporated Seven Tabs is we want to remove mindless automatons. And what I mean by that is I don't want my team memorizing scripts. Instead, I
Okay.
want salespeople that are able to learn on,
Engage
speak
in
on their
dialogue.
feet. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Engage in dialogue like a human being.
Right. And also problem solve. But while doing that, they need to maintain control of the conversation because it is our profession and our career.
Yeah.
And so one thing that we did, I think if you go to like the third
Hang on here.
slide,
I'm switching it up because my whole thing it's showing the wrong thing. So hang on.
all good.
I've got there we go. It doesn't like when I actually upload the PDF. So well that's not really any better either. So let's
So
see.
if you go to slide, there we go. That slide shows one of our seven taps. And I think that QR code should link to it as well.
Okay.
And essentially, what we did is we took some recordings of our salespeople on the phones. And again, the idea was to remove the need for a sales individual to memorize a script. So we took a recording and then we basically divided it into sections. And so what we
Okay.
were doing is taking, let's say, like an opening line of a conversation with, let's say, a buyer. And we take that 10-second recording. We then, using seven taps, are able, in a very snackable way, we're able to explain how maybe what that person said could have been
Okay.
better.
Okay.
And
Oh, so
and
you're
then
actually you're using real like call like actual like, hey, like let's listen to this and actually deconstruct
yeah,
it a bit.
like real
That's
life
awesome.
examples. Yeah. Real life examples of conversations that my team is having. And then what we're doing is using seven taps, we're asking the agent to then record what we think is a better way to say whatever the point is that they're trying to make. So, what
Okay.
we're finding is that it's a way more effective way for an agent to learn a script rather than
Yeah.
memorizing it, is to break it up into little pieces where they can address, let's say, the opening line versus the questions, and then
Yep.
of course the closing technique. So
Yeah, so you're still
using,
giving them the structure so that they understand, okay, hey, there's a purpose behind how we're doing this, but we're breaking it into pieces and then allowing you to actually interact with it bit by bit so that you actually then can reconstruct it holistically using your own critical thinking and agility to be able to work through it.
yeah, like you said, it encourages them to think critically, to think on their feet, and instead of a script which almost never works, because a script never works that way in reality. The questions aren't always that same.
Yeah.
The other person isn't following a script.
People are weird creatures and they're never predictable. That's actually why I left the tech world and got into the human performance world because computers are boring. People,
Yes.
they're fascinating.
Exactly. And prior to
Okay.
seven taps and using this technique, like essentially it was just either a long video, like a 20-minute video of how to have a
Okay.
conversation with the buyer, or maybe it was like a long text format.
Yeah.
And in this case, by breaking it up and taking the conversation that we're suggesting and kind of making it into little sections, and then requiring the user to upload their own response, so forcing them to practice,
Okay.
it's it's been pretty impressive, pretty
I,
helpful.
so you're not formally a learning person, but what I love about what you did is, I mean, you've taken the best practices of what real learning is, which is, yeah, you're setting the knowledge context, but then you're actually saying, now there needs to be some practical application to this as well. And you don't, as much as we'd love to just watch a thing or read a thing and then be really good at it, I think anybody who's lived a life anywhere knows it doesn't work. Like as much as I'd love to just watch more skateboarding videos and be able to ollie over like, a curb,
Yeah,
it
you have
doesn't
to practice.
happen. I've
Yeah,
got some, yeah, I got to get out there,
and
and
do
have
it.
my kids kind of tease me a little bit in order to actually do it. And if I don't, I wouldn't actually ever get good at it. And so you've actually built that into the whole thing.
Exactly, that's what I tried to do, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Well, and so as you like, so I'm curious with this. How did you go? So it sounded like the way you were doing it before was you had videos or you had, text that people were doing it. How did you end up getting introduced to like, hey, maybe there's a different way of doing this and then end up with what, by the way, I don't know if you have a designer helping you with this, but it looks sleek too. You've done a very good job with it. Kudos.
Yeah, this is not me. I wish I could take credit for the beautiful design. I have a fantastic marketing manager who
Okay.
specializes in everything design, and she makes everything look beautiful. And so she's clearly branded our seven taps. And really, I came across seven taps and we started using it for more like checklists, which have also
Okay.
been really effective, I have to say, from like a procedural standpoint. A lot of times, like if an agent, let's say, closes a transaction, they have to follow like,
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
like SOP procedure stuff. So you're actually some of your
right.
standard operating procedures. Is that where you got started with it?
Yes. So we have a standard operating procedure for agents, and it's really written as like a Word document.
Oh,
And
they're
that's
terrible. I
and that's
worked
not
in
fun.
regulatory and pharma, and I can tell you right now, SOPs are not the most exciting thing in the world.
They're definitely not. And so what we did was, and there are certain things that happen all the time. Like for example, an agent closes on a deal, they want to get paid. And
Yeah,
so it's the question that they ask time after time because with 118 people and we're averaging like 50, 60 closings a month. And maybe somebody closes a deal today, but they haven't closed for 6 months and they forgot what is the checklist. It's much
yeah,
easier to send them a link to Seven Taps, which walks them through it. There's visuals, they tap through, and it's done.
yeah.
So
The
it's been
fancy term in our industry for that one's called performance support, is really what you're talking about. It's like, because no human being on the planet remembers after 6 months, what was that thing I was supposed to do again? Yeah,
yeah,
and being like, "Oh, yeah, go back and take the learning," and you're like, "I don't need all of that. I just need to know
right.
how to do this thing."
Yeah, because before it lived in our, I forget what you guys call it, like the learning LMS
Learning
maybe?
management
There you go.
system,
Yeah. So
LMS.
it lived in there in a course that was called like, Premier Listings Policies, and they had to like go in and find it. So we were like, forget that. And now
Super
we
fun user experience, by the way. When you're like, I just need this thing real quick,
yeah.
and you're like, oh no, log into the LMS and then go find it. It's on page whatever something. I have no idea.
Yeah. So now what we do is we essentially just link it on our intranet. Like you closed, you want to get paid, click here, and it's significantly easier. So what we're doing is we're actually going through our LMS and slowly replacing a lot of the long form videos and the
Okay.
longer text with 7 taps, which has been, and the feedback I'm getting from my team is this is so much better. I finally understand what you're talking
Yeah.
about. So
Okay. So
yeah.
so that's kind of how you got started, was actually making that piece more digestible and snackable for folks in kind of that real time. And then it's just been kind of a journey for you to just continue expanding into different areas.
Yeah, it started out more administrative, and then when it comes to sales scripts, like the 7 taps that we're featuring here is specifically, and we have different scenarios, so different obstacles that might come up in a conversation.
Okay.
Um, so what we were able to do is use the 7 taps for different scenarios of what people are saying, and it's been a really effective way to teach agents some of these concepts that are really difficult to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Got it. Got it. And so you shared a little bit about it. So it sounds like the teams have, which by the way, I'll just tell you, kudos to you as the leader of the group, because there's plenty of people that would be like, no, the way we've always done it is really good. And I love making people watch these videos that I put all this time and energy into. So you being like, well, hey, like, was there any initial resistance for you where you're kind of like, I don't know, like when you were kind of pitched the idea of, hey, what if we did this? Or was it something you had heard and you said, well, why don't we try it? Where did that come from?
So no, honestly, it's been incredibly easy. I think so, Chelsea, the first speaker, talked a little bit about how long it takes her to make seven
Yeah.
taps. I think, and she's probably a designer with design background. I can tell you that it takes me like 20 minutes, and that's probably because my design is terrible. Desiree, who's the marketing manager who does all of these beautiful, I mean, it takes her longer, but what she's done for us, we're right now putting together a 30-day training using 7 taps for brand new agents, where every day they get a little bit of information. Because the
Okay.
number one issue I have when I onboard an agent is there's too much going on. So what we're trying to do is space it out over 30 days. And what I did was I asked some of my sales managers, hey, we need help getting this done. Would you guys mind logging into 7 taps and creating them for us? And I was shocked because they have they're sales managers, they're not designers. And they were all able to get in there and create content without really me even telling them how to do it. They just went in and they followed the prompts and they were able to create some great coursework.
Okay. So you're doing, see, I'm gonna upskill you in all our learning jargon. You just described right there what we call user generated content. And so you actually engage them in user generated content, which again is a fantastic way of saying, I don't have all the answers. Y'all are doing it. Why
Right,
don't
you
you
do.
participate? You help me understand what it is you actually need and actually then engage them in the process rather than going, nah, we got to have that all bottleneck through your poor marketing person who's like, I got to do this for like every single thing. So kudos to you on that. And there you go. There's a little knowledge nugget for you to take back. You can impress your teams. You go,
Well,
guess
thank
what
you.
I learned today? All these fancy learning terms.
I appreciate that. Thank you so
So
much.
one question I have for you that came up, I think this is actually a really great question from Amy is, so you're the CEO, you're an entrepreneur. I think sometimes there can be this pressure, especially as a business leader, to be so focused on going, I'm so busy doing a thing, or I'm so busy on the task at hand. I'm too busy to spend time or commit time and resources to doing some of these other things you did. Like you could have gone, videos are good enough. We got to close deals. We don't have time to think differently about it. How have you, like, what about you, or how have you kind of integrated that into you? Because that is something I can tell you, not only entrepreneur, but business leader I've encountered does.
Well, I think it depends on your goal and your intention. And I'm very much, um, my intention is to continue to scale. We have 3 locations and we want more around the state of Florida. And so if my
Okay.
intention is to scale it, I have to invest in resources like this so that I can get this information into more people's hands easily. So, as
Okay.
an entrepreneur, I actually really enjoy working on these types of trainings and resources for my team because I know it will result in agents that are more empowered, they're more skilled, and they're going to use less of my time by asking me questions like,
Yeah.
"What do I say?" And instead of me then, okay, well, let me spend an hour with you to tell you how to overcome this obstacle, I can simply say, here's a link, take this
Yeah.
quick 7 taps, and that answers their question. So I guess it's a long-winded way of a long-winded answer, but what I'm trying to say is that it's because I'm interested in scaling. And so I'd
Yeah,
rather,
no, and I totally get it. And you know what? If you just evangelize that to other business leaders, because I think that is something that more people need to hear from the business side. Because a lot of times this stuff is seen as nice to have. "Eh, that'd be nice for us to do that if we could, but we don't have time." And really what you're talking about is seeing the scalability of, but if we do this, it's we're going slow to go fast. Like we're taking the time to do this so ultimately we can scale and speed up down the road. And what can seem like, well, wouldn't it be faster if we just didn't do it? It's like, well, yes, but we're going to pay for it down the line.
I think it's also our culture. So we have a culture that's really open, like internally within the organization, the management team. We're really open to innovative ways to be better. And when you have that culture and a new software or tool like 7 Taps is available to us, everybody really embraces it.
Okay. I love it. Final question for you is, so lots of questions. I saw all the upvotes, so I'm not going to pull it up on screen because there were so many of them. They were all related. And as I'm doing that, I'm going to pull up your QR code, Jordana,
Oh,
so
yeah.
people can scan that if they want to. Um, but as final question on this is, so you've got people that are listening to this, they're then, sending back responses and things like that. So what happens with that? Is that something that you engage with? Do their leaders, like, what happens with that to then go, hey, we maybe need to coach this person because, ooh, that's what you think is a better answer? Like, no, 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 that's not how we would want to do. How do you engage with that?
So the sales managers will go in, listen to their responses, and then we'll do a role play type scenario where
Okay.
specifically about the sales scripts. And the idea of that is to take whatever the question might be or the obstacle is that we're trying to, talk about, and continue to just work on it and practice. And just like you said, when you skateboard and you want to get an ollie, you have to do it again and again. It's the same idea here. Once we can identify an area for improvement.
Okay. I love that. And again, hearing that you're taking it full cycle, because I think that's another thing that I've seen organizations break down where it's like, hey, we've done this really cool, innovative stuff. We're encouraging you to do this. And then it dies on the vine. And you're like, well, but is that going back to the person to go, here's what you did. Here's now how you might tweak or modify. And that's really where you see it take off. So like I said, you may not be a learning person, but you get a passing grade. I give you an A plus
Well, thank you.
from in my book. So there you go.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Christopher.
All right, Jordana. Well, I will let you go. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing this and for sharing your experience. And again, just giving some additional perspective on how you're doing that. Everybody, if we can give Jordana a big round of emojis and a big round of GIFs or GIFs or whatever you want to call them in the chat, really appreciate you making the time. This was super fun. And thanks for putting up with me for like 20 minutes. I enjoyed getting to know you better too.
That was fun. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.